This video is going to explain the short multiplication strategy for decimals. So short multiplication starts off pretty much the same as the long multiplication strategy when we're doing decimals. The first thing you're going to do is estimate. So for 6 and 583 thousandths, we look at the first number after the decimal, and that one's going to tell us that we need to round up and times 4. So my estimate will be 28, and because I rounded up, I know that this is an overestimate. Okay? So when I'm using the short multiplication strategy, I still want to think of my numbers as being in place value columns. So I'm ignoring that decimal and pretending that it's a large number problem. Okay? If I was doing this as a long multiplication strategy question, my first step would be doing 4 times 3, which I know would be 12. So I would write that like this. Now in the short multiplication strategy, it's the same thing. Start with 4 times 3 is 12, but instead of writing the 12 down here, I'm just going to write the number in the ones column, which in this case is the 2. But then that 1 that's going to go in the tens column, I'm going to make a notation of that just up here at the top of my tens column. Okay. My next step is going to be multiplying the 4 by the 8. So 4 times 8 is 32, and this is in the tens column, so it's going to be 32 tens, or 320. Now, same step over here. I'm going to go for the 4 times 8, but in this case, I don't want to write it underneath. In the short division strategy, I'm going to write my entire answer all along the same line. So with 4 times 8 being 32, and I have this little notation up here that tells me I need to add 1. So now I have 33. I can only put the ones number 3 here, and then that 30 will make a notation of that, a 3 up in this column. Now my next step would be multiplying the 4 times 5 hundredths. So 4 times 5 is 20 hundredths. So I would write 20 hundredths, or 2,000. On this side, same strategy. I'm going to do 4 times 5 is 20 hundredths, but then I add that 3. Really important that I add the 3 after I've multiplied. If I add those together and then multiply, I'll get a completely different answer. So 20 plus 3 is 23. I'll put the 3 down here, and the 2 for the 20 I'm going to make a note of up here. Okay. My last step for the multiplication is going to be 4 times the 6, which is 24 thousandths. So I'm going to put the 24 in the thousands column, or 24,000. On this side, same step. So 4 times 6 is 24, but I have this little notation that I need to add 2, so 26. And I can put the 6 down here. If I had another digit to multiply by, I would make a notation of the 2, but since I'm finished my multiplication, I can just put it here, 26. Okay. Now we know if we were still doing the long multiplication strategy, we'd have to do the final step.
Ava Connell to the office. Ava Connell to the office. Thank you.
We'd have to do the final step of adding the numbers together. 6. And would you look at that, we got the same answer. Of course, our last step is placing that decimal that we've been ignoring all along. So to do that, I look back at my estimate, and I said that it would be a little bit under 28. So it makes sense for my decimal to go here, 26 and 332 thousandths. Let's have a look at another question together. So for 8 and 35 hundredths, my first step, of course, would be estimating. So here I'm going to round down. 8 times 3 is 24. And because I rounded down, I know that this is an underestimate. Okay. In my long multiplication strategy, I would do 3 times 5 is 15. So of course, for my short strategy, I would put the 5 of the 15 here, but put the 1 in the tens column. My next step would be the 3 times 3 tens, which would be 9 tens. Okay. Here, same step. 3 times 3 is 9 tens, but oh, I know I need to add in that 1. So it's actually going to be 10 tens. That's a little tricky. For that one, I'm going to need to put the 0 here. So the 0, which is in the ones place of the number 10, and then the 1 is going to move over a column. I'm going to make a little note at the top. Then I'm going to do 3 times 8 is 24. And of course, that's 24 hundredths. I'm going to write 2400. With my short multiplication strategy, 3 times 8 is still 24, but I know I have a 1 I need to add in there, so it's going to be 25. I could put the 5 down. If this number continued on, I would make a little notation of a 2, but since I'm done multiplying, I can just put it in this column. Okay? If I was doing long multiplication, I'd have to add everything up. 1 plus 9 is 10, 5, and the 2. So I get the same answer. And then, of course, to place my decimal using my estimate, 25 and 5/100. Okay? Now I want you to try one on your own. So you're going to pause the video, copy down this question, and see if you can complete the question using the short multiplication strategy. When you're finished, you can unpause the video and follow along with my corrections. Okay, hopefully now you've done your own work on this question. Of course, you would have estimated first. So I've found 21 is my estimate, and that's an underestimate. Okay, so this was 3 times 8 is 24, so put the 2 up there. 3 times 2 is 6, plus that 2 is 8. I hope you didn't accidentally add before you multiplied. That's a common mistake to make. 3 times 4 is 12. And 3 times 7 is 21.